I put turn on this.
It's Anandram Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Anandram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, he dropped off.
Oh man. Wait, I'll just call him up.
No. I think it's they clicked the wrong button when I started live stream.
Oh.
So going back. I think even Mataji also dropped off because of the same reason.
Oh yeah, she's also dropped off. Okay, just hold on. I'll call them.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please join up from another link here. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you've been disconnected. Can you please join up again? Please. Yeah, sure.
Hare Krishna, Dandot Pranam, Mataji, Dandot Pranam to all devotees. So we are very glad to welcome Heidi Mataji. So a small brief introduction. So Heidi Mataji started her spiritual journey nearly 2 decades ago. For the past 15 years, a professional path has been in the world of skiing, wellness and yoga, instructing, teaching, coaching and motivating people in the spirit of giving and sharing. Apart from that, her passion and background in the field of writing and content creation is also seen in the execution of Bhakti Yoga in Rishikesh. Heidi Mataji is originally from Finland, but has spent several years in India practicing and studying yoga and spirituality and learning a lifestyle of service. For the past 10 years, she has been traveling and working with people from different corners of the world and building foundation for her life in India, where she is permanently residing now. Heidi Mataji has studied in yoga teacher trainings for over 1,000 hours and has dived deep into her practice in different ashrams and monasteries under the guidance of experienced teachers from authoritative traditions. Heidi Mataji's spiritual journey started with Buddhism at an early age before finding the path of Bhakti, which helps her to relate to the seekers from various backgrounds. As she practices Bhakti Yoga, the path of love and devotion, her own daily practice and studies show in her teaching and interactions with the students. As a teacher, Heidi Mataji is firm yet gentle, guiding her students through the process with compassion and genuine care. She is known for her encouraging and uplifting spirit, transmitting the teachings from her teachers in a warm and approachable manner. At Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh, Heidi Mataji is the team leader and the lead yoga teacher, as well as one you can turn to with any question, concern, or collaboration in mind. She'll be happy to help us and is looking forward and for this session. So from the guidance of Shamanand Prabhu, we are organizing this session for all the devotees, and we welcome to our group Mataji. This is we are conducting online sessions in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam at various times, and devotees from all parts of the world are joining. So we heartily welcome you by 3 times chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, Mataji. Over to you.
So just one more point to add here. So Mataji is also going to help us here in preaching in Helsinki. So while she is preaching in Rishikesh and India, she's also agreed to assist us with our preaching programs in Helsinki, Finland. So thank you, Mataji. Over to you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm currently here in Finland visiting for 3 weeks before I return to Rishikesh, India. And through Shamananda Prabhu, I got connected with Madhusavit Prabhu and all of you now. So very happy to speak a little bit about what we are doing in Rishikesh to the large international yoga audience that we have there. And So as in the introduction was told, I came myself through the path of yoga to this path of bhakti. And that's kind of what we are doing there in Rishikesh, which is known as the yoga capital of the world. People from everywhere come to seek something spiritually. And that's why it's kind of a dream project of Maharaj as well, because there is so much potential to spread bhakti, to spread Krishna consciousness to people from everywhere in that kind of surrounding. So I will just shortly speak a little bit about the project of Rishikesh, reality we have there, kind of like how we present the message there, how we try to connect with the people through yoga. And then after I've spoken, maybe if you want to ask questions or anything, we can make it more interactive. That would be nice. So in Rishikesh, this project has started 5-6 years ago, and a group of brahmacharis were sent to do this preaching for the Westerners mainly. And I got connected with this project in 2018 and became part of it as a Westerner myself and a yoga teacher. So that helps me to connect with the audience we have there and kind of act as a little link or bridge between the brahmacharis and the audience we have there. And Rishikesh, of course, has special meaning for Maharaj, who has spent time there, and therefore the significance of this project is, it's great to be part of it. And Rishikesh today, of course, most people come there for yoga, and their understanding of yoga is Ashtanga or Hatha yoga. And even Ashtanga means 8 limbs, path of 8 limbs, but majority of the people today practice maybe 2 of those limbs, asana and pranayama. So the yoga reality in Rishikesh is quite physical. People come from that physical layer of understanding what yoga is. And most of the yoga schools, we have 168 registered yoga schools under Yoga Alliance, and then hundreds of others, and all the ashrams and centers. So it's really like a hub for yoga schools. And most of the yoga schools are very commercial. So they are run by people who necessarily don't have the yogic principles and values, but it's rather business-driven reality there. And sometimes what happens in that reality is that, of course, the message might get diluted because people tend to water down whatever they are giving in order to meet the expectations of the people who might come from more physical or superficial entry point. And often, even the whole process of Ashtanga, as explained by Patanjali, is supposed to lead from the first initial external limbs to the further internal limbs, like from the physical layers of reality for the external layers, more physical, mental, emotional layers, towards the spiritual dimensions, as is the process of yoga. But in Rishikesh, most schools mainly teach asana and pranayama. So they meet people there. And the way how they teach philosophy is that they easily tend to teach these different steps and processes of yoga as the goal and purpose of yoga. So what we do, part of what we do there since several years in Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh is that we go to give kirtan in different yoga schools once they finish their yoga teacher training. And it's a 1-month course people do. And in that course, of course, they learn some philosophy as well. So often we ask them in the kirtan, there's a little wisdom talk, and we ask, what is the goal of yoga? And many people might come with an answer like, developing discipline is the goal of yoga, or controlling the fluctuations of the mind, like the Yoga Sutras teach. But it kind of stays there, because why we control the fluctuations of the mind so that we can go further. And actually the culmination of the whole Yoga Sutras is Ishvara Pranidhan, to surrender to God, but that's kind of left out from the teachings there. So there is definitely like a scope for giving deeper, authentic wisdom, because one thing that's also lacking in Rishikesh reality is there are very few kind of authorized traditions from where the teachings come, lack of parampara. So it's kind of a combination. People mix their own things with the teachings of yoga, and many teachers might be good, but then kind of the whole structure and system, and sometimes people are not even, many of the teachers not fully following the lifestyle of yoga. So there are many things happen in Rishikesh, and like Rishikesh means is one of the names of Vishnu and means a lot of the senses, and there's a place called Tapovan where we have also recently shifted, and we will start more offerings there, which is kind of the main place where most of the yoga things are happening. Tapovan is a place of tapasya, but nowadays it's not. It's supposed to be that, but many people also come to Rishikesh for enjoyment. And there's a lot of activities like river rafting and bungee jumping and all this happening. So the Indian tourism during COVID started to rise as well. People from big cities like Delhi are coming, but not so much for the spiritual reasons, not to visit the holy Dham, but just to have some getaway from the city in the mountains, doing some fun, exciting activities. So that has changed the reality there as well. But there are, amongst all this, a lot of sincere seekers who are not really finding that authentic, deep substance they are looking for from the current reality that is there. So there's a lot of scope for us also to be there and give that. And of course, we have had great instructions and guidance from Maharaj on how to present this there so that we can meet people where they're at. Maharaj gave this great example of staircase and elevator, that our whole purpose is to create this big, loving Bhakti community there. So like this big Bhakti umbrella, and wherever, and Bhakti is like that elevator that lifts us there easily and immediately. But some people need the exercise. So for them, wherever there's an elevator, there's a staircase as well. So those other practices and sciences of yoga are there under our big Bhakti umbrella in our offerings, in a way that we can meet people from where they are at. If they are coming from a very physical place, even many of those serious practitioners who have been practicing on the mat for 10 years, 20 years, for many of them, the goal of yoga is more on the mental, emotional level. Maybe they are looking for some mental peace, that control of the mind, and so on. So they are not yet seeking the actual spiritual truths necessarily. And so for them, when we meet them, we have offerings of asana pranayam as well. But as Maharaj has instructed us, we infuse everything with bhakti. So kind of in our purpose there, purpose of being there, we infuse all the offerings with bhakti, and yoga and kirtan, everything is a tool to lead deeper to these further connections we create. And especially yoga is a tool to bring people to bhakti. So we want to be very non-sectarian, and wide doors open for everyone, kind of that kind of very loving, welcoming, inviting, inclusive atmosphere, which we want to create in that reality of people coming from different traditions, most of them from impersonal understanding, and most of them, at most, they are maybe jnanis. So they are like approaching a very philosophically inclined and knowledge kind of approach, but they might not yet be further. And so therefore, kind of our purpose is to first give them the taste. So we have a lot of kirtan offerings, creating a very welcoming space for anyone to come experience kirtan, get that taste. We give them prasad and give them like that friendship, which is very much the basis of everything. So we don't want to be too pushy in the beginning. Just give nice kirtan, prasad, and friendship, and create that space that many people want to come again and again. And then comes space for philosophy. So we have online offerings like Bhagavad Gita classes ongoing for many years, as well as we have different gatherings and classes taking place in Rishikesh. And slowly from there, anyways, people, the knowledge and the wisdom, the philosophy will lead them further, if it will. And many of them have some existing practice from a different tradition. Rishikesh is kind of also this spiritual shopping mall reality, really, where people might either they come from some certain tradition and they are committed to that, which is already, we try to encourage that, because actually it's very rare in today's world, especially in the Western world, that anyone has a steady, constant spiritual practice of any tradition. So even if someone practices vipassana, which is very popular nowadays, so we really encourage them. We don't try to immediately, try to push them with any kind of agenda. We encourage them. Of course, we kind of remain cordial in that sense that we understand we might not agree on the philosophical level from where they are coming, but we create that space for open interaction. And one senior mataji nicely said that like in devotional service, everything starts with hearing. So it's the same with real interaction, which we really want to have as a basis of our connections there. So any real interaction starts with hearing. So we want to really be there for them, create that space of people who come from troubled backgrounds, like Westerners often come, a lot of things that have led them to seek something deeper. So maybe they have had difficulty situations in their lives. So when they come to a space where they feel heard, understood, kind of emotionally, mentally held, and that creates a very wholesome experience. And it really, we have noticed through several years now that it really kind of opens possibilities for further interest to develop towards this path as well. And especially when people feel coming from this individualistic culture we have in the West, where people kind of, it might take time for them to come to an understanding of needing a guru or some outside guidance, because people tend to want to make decisions for themselves. And that's how everyone is brought up in this culture here in the West. But when they feel accepted, encouraged from where they are, so slowly we have seen that it starts to change. They start to develop more and more. So that's kind of a very inclusive atmosphere we want to create there. And of course, doesn't mean that we start agreeing with that philosophy or coming kind of diluting our message with that. But at the same time, we can have that difference, but on a human level and spiritual level, we really, appreciate all the efforts, and we really are good friends with them. So that's kind of the mood we want to create there. Like Maharaj said, very loving, compassionate mood. And our mood is authentic bhakti, like he said. And he specifically said that sometimes people think that authentic bhakti is something very rigid, but it's not, that it's something very loving and compassionate. So that's kind of the mood that will speak to people there. Of course, simultaneously, us being deeply rooted in our principles, obviously, but in a way, how we give it to them. And of course, then the other reality of these serious seekers that are there, who are committed to one path already. So they are actually quite far, even it's a different path, but already they have found one path. They are sticking with that, having a constant practice. So actually it's a very good place for us to meet them, because then the other reality of the spiritual seekers we have there is people who are kind of shopping around, because Rishikesh is really a spiritual shopping mall. There are so many different courses, retreats, schools, offerings. So many people who come there one week they do a course of Kundalini, then next week they go to Osho, do something there. Then they get interested. I want to do something with Bhakti. I want to, deepen my understanding on this and this. And so they are seeking. And I think also partially when we come from West with such a lot of variety with every aspect of our lives, so it can encourage that kind of blending and mixing things. But of course, as we know, it can create problems, because then we independently start picking raisins from the bun, as they say, and picking the best part from here and best part from here, and combining according to our own limited understanding. So that's something that's there, but again, they come, and sometimes it might be more difficult to reach to them because they might not be so serious. But we have seen also that once we give that kind of mood and atmosphere and place and space for them, it can make a big difference. And that can really, like, how we make people feel and how we welcome them, how we are successful in being inclusive and really like understanding towards their entry point, that really makes that difference. And especially because most of them are practicing some form of physical yoga. So even explaining about yoga without the physical aspect is difficult. So when they get the practice of coming to asana class and pranayama class, and then we offer the other things as a kind of extension of that and going further from there. So it's an easy way for them to understand. And it can be a very good thing. Like people who have actually, like the system of Ashtanga yoga, actually prepares one for the practice of meditation. So first there are the yamas and niyamas, so the ethical guidelines and the inner work that a person is supposed to do. So someone who is fully following the path of Ashtanga then comes to asana and starts to physically, energetically balance, harmonize, and purify the body, and then through pranayama control the mind, and so on. Then comes withdrawing of the senses and concentration and so on. So people can be very much like they have done this foundation work and they have prepared themselves nicely. So actually it can be good. Sometimes we have seen people who come from there, they are ready to pick up very seriously this practice of bhakti because they have already done this groundwork with these other practices of yoga. So in that sense, it's an interesting reality and mix of everything that we deal with there. And really this Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh has we have these different offerings through which we try to give this inspiration to people. So we have these weekly kirtan programs, we have yoga classes there, and even in this yoga that I'm teaching there, so often we think it's like, how can you combine the bhakti elements? But anyways, we can add a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of some concept or theme or some kind of little inspiration there. And many people then actually through the asana classes, we have noticed that they get connected as a friend first with us. And then, that takes them further. They start to come to kirtan and something. So it acts as a nice bridge like it's supposed to in what we do. And then we have these different philosophy offerings and these kind of gatherings and circles where people can share. That sharing and as like I mentioned before, to have that space to be heard is very important to people. So when they feel that, even Shamananda Prabhu told us that our asset is really this personalized hospitality that we can give to people, because in a commercial world of Rishikesh, where most yoga schools are mainly aiming to make a lot of profit and they are not really, it's very impersonal actually what they are doing. We have a personal philosophy. We also want to be very personal in our dealings, in how we are with people, how we present our philosophy through what we do. So that's something that's we have seen it's appealing to people, which is very nice. And kind of like the way how we present the message is not that we dilute it, because in the modern day yoga scene, what we can often also see is that in name of bhakti, it has become even a popular term, but generally a lot of things are happening. Like people name their events and retreats and things under the name of bhakti. And what they mean by that is this general kind of open-hearted, loving communication with others and kind of like sharing love with one another, this kind of understanding. So which can of course be very something very far from what we understand eventually, and how they execute it without maybe not proper guidance or understanding. But we really want to, of course, stay true to the message, but give it in a way that we also use a lot of references from the Yoga Sutras. Most people are familiar with the Yoga Sutras and Hatha Yoga Pradipika, one of the three main texts on Hatha Yoga. And that these are the texts that they often study in Rishikesh. So even if we present Bhagavad Gita, we might have some references from the Yoga Sutras, kind of find the mutual ground and use Hatha Yoga Pradipika and the examples from there, and speak from the examples of yoga in a way that people can connect. Because for most people, especially if they are at most on the level of knowledge, so they are not really deeper yet. So to maintain things on a very pragmatic and practical level is important, so that they can really find something relevant to their own lives. And one of our main things also is to aim to be very relatable and relevant in that world of Rishikesh. So through this kind of presentation, how we speak, how we connect, and especially we don't try to be what might be to the Westerners be pushy in the preaching, that that immediately you start kind of putting some kind of expectation or start suggesting something that you should change anything in your practice or something like that. So we have to first create that space and that trust, and that people feel that there's no kind of like that, oh, you're only coming to me with an agenda, and that creates rejection in a lot of Westerners. But when we create that very much of that bonding and that friendship first, so then it becomes natural. They start to develop that interest themselves. I think especially for people from individual culture, when they come to that point that I've been meditating on this for already 5 years or something, but now after coming to your programs, I start to develop this interest on chanting. So could you tell me more? And also, of course, then, and chanting is there, we also do guided japa in the offerings, and also, of course, we give that to people, but not in a way that from the beginning we start expecting anything. We give everything, and then people go from there, and we try to be fully supportive and encouraging, and give that kind of space of freedom that's important for Westerners, so they don't feel in any way that they are kind of like limited. And so they feel naturally inclined, and they develop that interest themselves. So that's something that's important in our offerings. And we have done these Bhakti Yoga retreats and these spiritual trips. Like Maharaj told us that one of our two big main assets actually in Rishikesh, of course, are Ganga and the Himalayas. So we really want to use them in the preaching there, in a way that we have done some spiritual trips to Himalayas higher up, like Uttarkashi and beyond, where people actually, Rishikesh has become such a busy place that you don't find that peaceful atmosphere for nice meditation that people sometimes come to look for. So when you go higher to the mountains, and then we combine a lot of spiritual stories, giving some bhakti classes, yoga classes, everything. So we have had good feedback on these kind of trips. And it's actually a nice way of preaching there, because only the travel agencies mainly are doing these kind of trips, but they are not giving the spiritual substance. So when we offer these spiritual trips, but we give, of course, the spiritual substance in form of bhakti. So it's something that no one else is doing there. So it's actually found its place very nicely, and we aim to really increase the number of these offerings, because we have so many places there nearby. And of course, in the future, also taking people to the other holy locations of India. But the reality of the community that we are creating in Rishikesh is a little different than in any normal city, because like Maharaj said, that Rishikesh is a passing through place. So people come and go. So we don't really find that kind of crowd who stays there for very long. It's a smaller amount of people who really are settled there. But out of those Westerners and international people, most come for 1 month, 2 months, even some, of course, for a few days or 1 week, but if they are for 1 month or few months, so they develop that interest while they are there, and then they leave. And then again, after that, we have new. So constantly our community consists of new people mainly. And it has its own challenges, of course, because we won't have that, like normally if you build a community somewhere and you have those devotees who are starting that and who are like the backbones of that, but then you start to have the new people who become very active and start to do some service and this and that. But that kind of reality is not really realistic in Rishikesh, because we have constantly changing audience there. So we kind of constantly speak to new people, only those few who are there then more consistently. But that's why we have really started to connect with them online. So our purpose is that once they create that connection, we have something to give to them once they go back home. They have that inspiration and they are enthusiastic to go deeper. And sometimes it might be so that because the mood we present to them in Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh might be still a little far from them to go to a traditional temple setting in their country. So in the Western preaching scene, what is happening a lot in the West is that many of the temples are getting very Indianized, like a lot of the Indian people who are living in that particular country are more of the active members there, and even in the management, leadership, and so on. And the message as presented traditionally is appealing less and less to the Westerners, especially to the kind of like the very, the professional educated people there. They might not be very into it. And then in many countries in the West, they have started these more modern bhakti projects, different kind of centers, preaching centers, where the mood is something similar than what we try to create in Rishikesh. But the people we create connection with in Rishikesh, if they are not yet there, like they have had that interest in kirtan and philosophy and that friendship we have created, but it might be too much too soon to go to a traditional temple, because people come from, different, they might not be ready. So that's why also, if in their country there is no kind of modern project yet happening, we want to create that connection. So at least we give online that inspiration. And we have seen, I have met many people and connected with people who do successful preaching in the West in these more modern settings. And what they really try to do is a similar thing, that appeal to people more from where they are at. Because if we are kind of having this very high spiritual wisdom and ideal and message, but if people are not there to receive it, and we keep giving it from there like that, so there might be too big of a gap, and people might not get and receive that. So these projects, like I met a group of brahmacharis who came to Rishikesh from Australia, and they told that in Australia they have in Melbourne different separate preaching center, and then the temple. And the preaching center is like the initial and many people, and then there's a different audience who are ready to go to the temple. Kind of they have this system there, and I think that's kind of what we have in Rishikesh as well. Because besides Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh, ISKCON Rishikesh has a big active local congregation, but that's fully like Indian crowd, and all the classes, everything is in Hindi. And we have also noticed and seen through experience that it's a little far from the mood that we give to the new people in the yoga scene. So sometimes when these people come to the local offerings, they might not connect because they got the taste in a very different mood. So we want to keep giving them more in the mood they are in, and how they can understand and accept that. And then eventually bring them closer and closer. But that might be a very gradual and sometimes slow process. So like in Rishikesh, we have seen that in short time, actually, the brahmacharis have been very successful in creating like a large local congregation, a lot of new people who become devotees, and they are very active in service and everything. So I have seen then myself as a Westerner that, with Indians, you can do it like this. But then we have seen with the international, this Western project, that it's definitely not as easy to create similar kind of success in terms of number of devotees. So maybe the success is measured differently. Of course, we should anyways keep giving, not be so attached to the results, but of course Prabhupada also wanted us to make devotees, so of course that is there. But in that sense, the success for us is maybe there, that we really see that people become serious. There are people who have been studying the Bhagavad Gita for many years with us now, and they might not be yet so devotionally even inclined, but their thirst for knowledge is ever growing. And anyways, through that path of knowledge, as we know, they might eventually then come deeper to devotional understanding as well. So we just want to keep encouraging that. And there are people we have seen who have a fully different path. Like a person who is for several years very dedicated for Vipassana, even living in that Vipassana center and hours of meditation every day. But through kirtan, through philosophy, through friendship, especially that real friendship, he's actually transitioning to Bhakti fully, slowly. So it's very nice to see that. But I think the success that we see is in that way, that people really change. They really apply this philosophy and wisdom and start making real changes, becoming more responsible, cultivating these qualities that we want to cultivate through the spiritual process. So even if they don't become devotees, like ISKCON devotees like that, but we see that they are changing actively, transforming their lives, which is what the yoga is about, transformation. So they are actually applying, so seriously learning, applying what they are learning, what we are teaching them. So it's very rewarding to see that, even though it might not be in that kind of form that we have a big line of new devotees in that sense, but it's a different process for everyone. And some people continue on another path, apply the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita there. Some become devotees on their own way. Many people have started, even told that, coming from very atheist understanding, but I've opened up and now I can understand that there is something higher. So they slowly come higher in their understanding of, actually at least understanding the divine energies everywhere, and maybe eventually coming to more personal understanding. But this is kind of the reality and process we have there. And in that sense, we have we have in the team of very experienced brahmacharis, and which is very needed so that we kind of maintain the culture and the etiquette and standard and everything. But then in the actual dealings with the people, similarly as the team from Australia told, that sometimes even the brahmacharis are more in the back, that because that connection and more casual friendship developing everything is of course more easier for people like myself, who can, especially 95% almost of our audience, yoga audience, is women. Most people who come to do the yoga courses in Rishikesh, they are women. So for a Western woman, it's easy to connect. And when someone coming from the same background, culturally, but also understanding kind of the life they went through, but also spiritually, that I went through those paths. I came through yoga. I had an impersonal practice, Buddhism, for a long time. So I can relate to and understand their questions and rejections and everything. So it's actually helpful very much in order to connect and create that kind of, that they feel like, oh, you can really get me, I feel understood. And when one feels understood fully, that can be really much like create space for being open to, again, accept something else. So that real interaction and that mood of real interaction is very important for us. But of course, at the same time, the reality, yes, is that Rishikesh is fully like a Mayavadi land. So for ourselves, of course, that we maintain our strong sadhana and association, and so that we won't be affected by it, because that's kind of the reality where we are. And especially for myself, like the association trying to seek it online and get that inspiration and all, because then on the daily life, I'm spending a lot of time with people who come from that different background. But I think, of course, because we won't give that, we give that hearing in that sense that we hear their situation and where they are coming from, their life situation, but we are not necessarily hearing their philosophy and starting to align with that. So so in that sense, we are not getting that association from them, and we are, but I don't know if I spoke anything of sense. I think this would be a good point to open for you to ask something if you have anything to ask about the Rishikesh Reality Hour project, which is actually like a dream project, like Maharaj said, that he visions big things in Rishikesh because he sees so much potential. There's no place in the world like Rishikesh where people from everywhere in the world come with some kind of spiritual inclination. So the opportunities for spreading bhakti are tremendous there. And of course, there are many other groups doing kirtan as well. At least there are two so-called Mayavadi groups in 2 different old ashrams where they have non-stop 24-hour Harinam going on. They are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra there. And this is happening. But then, of course, we have also noticed one thing that I like to add, that we have this, our biggest offering at the moment, this kirtan we have every Saturday in MVT. MVT also has a guest house hotel in Rishikesh. And we do a lot of collaboration with them because it's ISKCON operated. So they have facilitated a lot of space and possibilities for us to do preaching there. And we have this kirtan every Saturday there for the new yoga people. And every Saturday, around 100 people come, mostly Westerners, mostly new people. They get kirtan, they get prasad. We connect with them. A lot of those people further then come to our online Bhagavad Gita class or something. So actually it's a great place for connection. And it has become the biggest and the best known kirtan offering in the whole of Rishikesh. So it's very, very rewarding for us that kind of like our main offering is kirtan. Like Maharaj said, that our identity is in kirtan amongst all the other yoga schools, is in kirtan, japa, seva. So this is our identity, and that we don't have to hide that we are devotees of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, that we are followers of this path. We just give it in a universal, more acceptable way to everyone and keep the doors wide open for anyone to enter, so that we can inspire the whole crowd of Rishikesh to bhakti. And it seems to be successful so far. So we are really looking forward to what the future holds and how much more opportunities for this preaching we have there. So I'm very happy to share a little bit of this to you all. And if you would have any questions of the Rishikesh, of this project, anything, I would be happy to. How we deal with the yoga reality or anything, I would be happy to hear. Yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you very much for a very enthusiastic presentation.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Yeah. So I was going through the profile also, and as you were talking, as you're presenting, so I was seeing that from impersonal to personal, that is a big journey. Many of us in India, we have been protected, and especially because our first stint for most of the cases have been with ISKCON itself, being a personalized preaching mission. So we directly go to the philosophy of Bhagavan. But we know that impersonal feature of the Lord is incorporated in the Bhagavan feature also. Yeah. So
Yes.
as you practice both, and then you got more attracted now towards Bhakti movement. So what is the difference in the spiritual practice and the soul nourishment which happens? So because while I'm asking in terms of when we are reaching out to people, we come across people who are doing, even in cities, they may not come to Rishikesh, but there are many Vipassana centers, and initially they get little attracted towards our Bhakti Yoga process. But yeah, as you said, a lot of patience. That is, one should not be very pushy and accommodative. So can you please tell your personal spiritual understanding between the two things and how you felt more attraction in Bhakti?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Well, like you said, it's like sometimes in India, it is so that, and like you said, you've been protected in that sense. And sometimes I have met senior devotees who are kind of like very much scaring of the Mayavadi reality we have in Rishikesh, and that kind of like making a lot of division. Of course, we understand things that how we are taught and what Prabhupada says and all, but like you said, the impersonal is a dependent reality of the person, and there would be no impersonal without the person. So that kind of appreciation that someone is understanding some aspect of that, and for me personally, it is definitely that soul nourishment, maybe like you said, and heart nourishment that came from that shift. Like I feel I was more on the level of the mind, like working to actually, I still feel like many of those practices, like many Buddhist meditations and Vipassana and all, they can be great tools helping with the kind of like tools to work with the mind in a initial stage. But for me, it was just like that. It was a preparation, and I really feel it now and understand it now. It was a preparation and kind of a process of working with some aspects before I came here. And for me, it helped me to develop this kind of understanding, because it actually gradually developed. Actually, the reason I philosophically got interested also of this path, that I felt like some questions are not answered and some things philosophically are incomplete in Buddhism, and I started to really question the soul and everything, like how can there be some concepts in Buddhism without that. And then when I came to Bhakti, have that those heart opening experiences in Kirtan, and really that soul nourishment. And I think it was quite a long path to start really. Before even the impersonal practice, I was an atheist, so rejecting God, and then coming to that impersonal, and from there slowly I started to understand, like we have the different levels. So I started to understand the higher power, energy. Most yoga people speak like this. But then as the yoga practice went further also, so for me it was kind of like, if there's this connection, and initially, of course, yoga practitioners understand that on a bodily mental level connection there. But when you add that higher aspect, and still I was thinking, if we only have that higher energy, how can there be that connection requires two? So is there like something, is that higher power in form of some person that they can actually be that ultimate connection? So for me, it was kind of a process to come to that questioning. And then I got many answers from Prabhupada books, but the experience spiritually was fully like, I would say the practice was definitely more dry discipline. And then when I came to Bhakti, so much of this hard nectar was there, and that attracted me. And what happened to me personally, and how much it has opened me up in different ways to create that personal relationship with God, which is something that 20 years ago I wouldn't have even think that can never happen because I was rejecting so much. But also definitely it helps to understand the rejection of those who we meet when I had those same experiences. And I think many people also tell us that they feel something different, that when they come to association of Bhakti practitioners in Rishikesh. So they feel like there is something like more wholesome and fulfilling. They cannot put it in words yet, but there's something that nourishing on a deeper level. So definitely it's something similar that slowly drew me higher, and definitely that what we want to like really incorporate, so that people feel welcomed and not really rejected ever. And we don't want to pose as superior in that. Easily that could happen, I feel. that when people present Bhakti in form of, like, generally we speak of the yoga ladder to yoga people, that, you know, and then Bhakti is the highest culmination of the all yogic practices and all, and then people who might not yet connect with that, it can seem a little bit superior sometimes, that, oh, you're just like, only your path is the right path, and it's so superior to these other things, and it might not be appealing to people, so I have to be careful in how to put that. But once someone like myself, I came to that understanding, and it really is, all the other practices I had make sense, it ties it together. So I really like this word of culmination of all the yogic practices. I feel everything I did before made sense, and it had its place and time. For a certain reason, because of the stage and place I was in my life. But then coming to Bhakti opened the gates. So, and makes sense of everything I used to do earlier. I don't know if this answers.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for that. Basically, with the as you got more and more attracted towards Bhakti, I find that you're getting more and more happy and nourished. That is what.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, because like all the, you know, even you have a long meditation background, but as we know from the Bhakti philosophy and perspective, that you cannot really, because in the other impersonal practices of meditation, it also makes sense that we cannot, through own experience, that we cannot continue meditating on something without a form for very, like, forever, because actually there comes kind of, I kind of faced a wall at some point, like after so much of efforts of trying to empty everything, I kind of realized through experience it doesn't, anyways, it tries to fill up with something, and again I have to empty, and is it like, what's the point? And then when I realized with the Bhakti process, we actually fill it up with something higher, and we actually through meditation start to connect and start to, so it's not that we try to get rid of something, but we align that for some higher course. So that made much more sense and gave that kind of different kind of fulfillment, because easily the mood in these impersonal practices and amongst the ashtangis and all, we can see it's kind of maybe a little restrictive, like internally, because you are living so much in that practice of trying to get rid of something, trying to empty, but instead it becomes like, it can actually be a little negative, isn't it? So you come to the positive when you start filling it with spiritually positive content instead of trying to empty something, because that void itself is impossible for long term to so, as we know. So yeah, definitely that deeper, nourishing, soul full happiness came with Bhakti.
Thank you so much, Mataji. At this time, I will ask other devotees if they have questions. I still have one more question, but depends on other devotees also. Yeah. Yes, any other devotee has some questions to ask? Feel free to ask.
Hare Krishna, there is one question here.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I'm Yamuna Jivanpriya. I would just like to ask about this community there. That how is it, like, how many members you have, like active members who live in Rishikesh? I mean, those devotees who are there. So I understood that, okay, you have this Bhakti Yoga Center, which is for more like yoga group, and then there is this ISKCON Rishikesh, isn't it, which is for Indians. Am I right now?
Yeah, it is for everyone, of course, ISKCON Rishikesh, but current reality is fully Indian. Let's say it like that. But yes,
preaching is more for Indians.
Yes, because everything is also in Hindi, and the presentation and mood and everything. So the people we have there, actually it started from very small when the brahmacharis from Chowpatty and Pune were sent there. So there was a group of around 10 brahmacharis, and they started everything from scratch, and there was no local congregation, nothing in Rishikesh. And at that time, and then short after that, I met them and I kind of joined. So for me, my service wise, it's been like, it's the brahmacharis and myself, and we don't have other like Western members, or actually no other females in the team yet. But then during COVID, all the yoga tourism stopped, so they had to start doing something. So they started attracting the locals, doing programs for them, and quickly within 1 year, they had a nice big congregation and very active people coming up and taking up the process, starting to chant and everything. Now it's been a few years, so it's very nice what's happening with the locals. So that's kind of active, but it's a separate. So this community we have is kind of like, it's small yet, and it's because it's also built on those changing people. We have a lot of connections around the world who come for 1 month, 2 months, and then they stay, and then they go. So sometimes we have only like when it becomes off season and we don't have none of those people in Rishikesh. So it's just that I am there and the brahmacharis are there, and we are doing the programs for the weekly programs. And of course, those attract a lot of people. But for this community, so we have recently shifted to a new place. So we have a place which we didn't have. So now there's 2 projects fully, like previously there was one ISKCON Rishikesh, and we used to do our Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh programs in different locations. So, but now there is ISKCON Rishikesh, which is more, a little further from the tourist area, in a local residential area. And then we have the Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh, which is now in heart of Tapovan, the tourist area. And just a few weeks back, we shifted there. So it's, and we have separate place, like the few brahmacharis are there. And then myself, I'm there, and we have some space for people who come short time to serve and want to help or want to learn more about Bhakti, little space for them to stay there as well. And majority of our offerings now will start to take place in MVT. So because they want to facilitate the preaching, and they have great yoga halls there and the big garden for kirtan and everything. And they even help us with the prasad distribution and many things. So that's very nice. But the community-wise, like Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh is quite in beginning, and that community is kind of spread around the world. So all those people throughout the years who got in contact with us and got some inspiration and started maybe some practice or something, but they might be now in different parts of Europe, US, some in India. Our audience is also, like Maharaj told us, that the younger generation of Indians easily get attracted to the same things as the Western people. So it's pretty much which we see in our kirtans and all. It's like half. The younger Indian generation, many of them who come from big cities, move to Rishikesh, and then we have the Western audience. But so the community is kind of a very, that we have, which you asked, it's kind of a very changing and living thing. But the people who are really there and serving in this project and staying long term, it's right now very less, but we hope to increase once we also have kind of more of a structure and facility for them to come and help. So far, it hasn't been yet there, but that's why it's been easy to do these trips and changing location programs.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So the group who is staying there are quite small, really, like who are doing the work, you would say. So
Yes.
the main people are like very much moving here and there, you know, like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like
you're
the main,
one of the few people who stays there, really, like living there and all, and doing the service.
yes, basically in this service, there's few brahmacharis and then myself at the moment who are doing this. And then of course we have some locals who come, like who are great kirtanias, for example, who come for the kirtan program. They come and they sing and so on. So in that sense they help, but they are not so that's
Permanently there. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and they are more involved in the local preaching because it's more natural direction for them with the local congregation.
Okay. All right. Anyway, nice to hear that you're doing such a nice job there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for the question. Is there anyone else? anything you would like to say or ask, I would be happy.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I ask my question to you.
Hare
So,
Krishna.
both in your spiritual practice and journey, and now while you are trying to connect devotees through the tool of yoga, as you mentioned, it's a tool to connect people to bhakti. So, what I find is like a lot of patience is required. So, we have to wait and understand the person, to make a good friendship and bonding, and then connect it. So this sometimes while we are doing direct preaching is we tend to come to the point too fast. So what is the lesson? Yeah, patience is the thing, but how do you manage it to wait for the time to do it? Like how there are some devotees over here who are trying to preach. There are some devotees who are already preaching to people, reaching to people, to different audiences. So your experience in patience can help. So you can give more clarity on this.
Yes, thank you. It's very true that a lot of patience is required, and sometimes because it can take a lot of time. It's so it's like a bumpy road, and even we have noticed that sometimes people who get very inspired, but then after a few months again they might take some other direction. Oh, they are telling that I did this Kundalini course and I went here and did this, but we remain kind of like, we don't give up. We try to remain that friendship and be there. And sometimes, of course, it can be kind of course, honestly, even like personally disappointing or something, that is something happening. But what we try to do is just through that, because when we maintain that more human to human friendship, we've noticed that that really helps, because people feel that when that you are there for them and you are really interested in them as a person, and not just to give this philosophy to them from their point of view. It looks like that. So then again, sometimes there's a bump on the road or some low in their life, and then they remember, oh, there's that one person, and then they come back kind of more philosophically again, and it might be then a turning point, even that, oh, actually now they are more open because they are really much in a bigger need, something's happening in their life. And because you maintain that friendship and you didn't give up, even though nothing was much happening, like change in their path or interest or inclination, but because you stay there and you remain connected and you were friends with that person, so then the time comes when it's the right time, and then they come with the questions, they come with the need. And then when you are still there and you are giving now more of the substance and more even directly, if they are something that can help in that situation and all, so then they can become like that change can happen there. So definitely it needs patience. And I think what will help is that just understanding the big picture of it, and the how the path of yoga is really a process. Like for me, of course, personally, I think what helps is because I went through, it took a long time to actually come to devotional path. So then it can take many years for someone else also. So, and it doesn't mean that they are not serious. And I think as long as we keep giving something so that they remain going to the right direction, even if it's not like generally in life, doing good, making good decisions, doing good things, cultivating the good qualities, applying some things, even if it's very indirect, and we might not see that they're actually taking up this bhakti path, but these kind of changes will lead to something else eventually. It's just that ability to see a little further and have that patience. And I think once you have few experiences of this, that even it's been for a few years and you didn't think they might, but the turning point comes, they take up the process more seriously. It gives really courage and encouragement for oneself that, oh, actually now I saw this, that after all these years, so it gives courage to continue with the new people again, that okay, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but who knows, year after that or so, something might happen. Even it might sound so slow that what's the purpose? But anyways, we are giving something good and that inspiration and that direction and planting that seed and hopefully planting more and more seeds. So eventually it's then up to of course them to decide how they utilize that and what changes they make in their life. But I think that bigger picture and understanding the nature of the whole process, the path of yoga is, it really helps that we each come from different background and different reality and different entry point. And I think that's so nice that I said earlier what Maharaj said about the staircase and the elevator, that also wherever there's an elevator, which Bhakti is, there's always the staircase, so that for those who want to, so we kind of meet them, even if they are somewhere else on the staircase, we meet them there, keep giving, keep being welcoming and inviting and inclusive, even though they might go back sometimes, come back, go back and forth, and eventually many of them will get inspired. It just takes longer time.
Thank you, Mataji. You spent many years working in the state of Bihar, India, and after that, efforts. What was motivation?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question. It was like cracking the voice.
I repeat again. I repeat it again.
I don't hear. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. One. Hare Krishna, am I audible, ma'am?
Now, yes, I can hear.
Okay. So Madhusetu was telling me that you spent quite years working for NGO in the state of Bihar, and also now you are working very hard. You're taking quite a lot of physical and mental austerity. What is the motivation then when you're working for NGOs, and what is the motivation now? Like, what keeps you motivating to take up these initiatives in the movement?
Thank you. Yes, I stayed in Bihar for several years in an NGO before, and definitely, yes, that was also, well, a lot of austerities because I lived in a rural village there, and it was a really different reality coming from a country like Finland. But really, I think I was always very much driven by, I really wish to share something, contribute something positive around me, even kind of before I came to spiritual path. So for me, this kind of mood of collaboration and contribution and everything that Bhakti is really then later spoke to me, because it's kind of like, actually we get so much from like being born in a country like Finland. You have so much of freedom and opportunities and possibilities, but most use it for their own and selfish purposes. But it can actually be, you have like wings to fly and go and do things which you're given here, but what's the purpose if you don't do something of higher meaning with that? So then I always kind of felt, first time I came to India 12 years ago, and I really felt I want to do something. I feel this country is my home. I want to contribute something here. Opportunity came to stay in Bihar and be part of this NGO, and it really gave me the meaning to share whatever I had learned. So actually the mood of kind of being of service and everything, it came through the yoga path, kind of not understanding the Bhakti aspect of it, and not maybe connecting it with the, not, of course, just it was on a karma yoga level in that sense, but that motivation to do that was that personal motivation also was to learn and widen my understanding and perspectives of life and everything, because I felt like staying comfortably where I have always been will not give me much of that. But also, besides books, which I love, I want to go and learn through that experience of being exposed to this culture and learning through that. And of course, living in a little rural reality of Bihar really gave me a lot of learnings. And but then that motivation, of course, changed when the Bhakti aspect came to the picture, and I developed that connection with Krishna, and really that kind of inclination I had to do something for share and to give what I have, be of service, made more sense, of course, because now I can serve. I have had great guidance from Hare Krishna Prabhu, Shamananda Prabhu, and many senior devotees on this path, and really starting to study this path systematically under them and how much they have facilitated to me. So it's like my biggest dream to continue to serve them, and through them our spiritual master, and then eventually Krishna, and that mood just kind of had more flavors and tones, that mood of being of help, when I had a little bit of higher understanding, but it was always there. So for me, it was kind of a natural. I didn't even feel like I'm giving up on something when I want to do this thing on someone else, because it was more like a natural driven thing that I wish to do, and do this to be of good to those around me, that I always seek for something of meaning and purpose, even before I came to the understanding of what that meaning and purpose is, but something which is beyond our daily selfish dealings. So that kind of motivated me then, and it motivated me now, and I hope that I can stay in Rishikesh and continue serving from the best, with the best abilities that I have. I hope to be increasing the abilities so that I can be of more service and help this project, because it was so inspiring when Maharaj has given us the instructions and shared his vision and his enthusiasm, and really now feeling that, how can I be so blessed that I can be part of this project, which is his dream project, sharing this wisdom of Bhakti to people in Rishikesh. So it's really, really, really inspiring. I feel really blessed. Even, of course, some austerities are there and some difficulties sometimes, being a Westerner in India. But yes, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. And it's a great opportunity for you that you are able to serve Maharaj in his vision. And Maharaj's vision is such that most of the even we initiated disciples also don't know actually his visions get revealed over the period of time. So you're very fortunate, and at the same time we can see that you are able to inspire many people. I'm also happy to hear that since you are from Finland and you're going to help Madhusevak Prabhu, Yamuna Jivani Mataji and devotees in Finland to connect to more Finnish people also. As you said that you can understand, being a Westerner, it's easy for you to understand what is their expectations compared to we as Indians. We have a different background and upbringing. So I suppose this could be one more nice service which you add up in your list of services and help a lot of devotees in Finland. And since you have an Indian connect also and the Finnish connects, a lot of Indians in Finland also will get the benefit, and a lot of Finnish devotees also will get, Finnish people will also get. I pray a lot of success for you in your endeavors. So, Madhusevak Prabhu, any words you would like to add? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you very much, Mataji, and all the devotees. So yeah, we hope to. We're looking forward to. Next week again, you have another program here with the Matajis in Finland.
Yes, really looking forward to meeting all the people there, speaking some yoga.
So now I think this time you're running out of time, like in the sense that already I think 21st you're going back to Rishikesh.
25th.
25th.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see if we can arrange something else before that. Like if you could come to temple one of these days on Sundays, we could just connect with other devotees also.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Sunday feast, like some devotees do come there. But I mean, this time, I mean, it was too short a duration, and I got a very short notice from Shamanand Prabhu also. So maybe next time around we could fix some more meetings, as we were discussing earlier, also with the other class of the Finnish society, and then see how we can take it up from there. Because preaching here has been quite difficult.
Yeah, like you mentioned that there are the difficulties you have here, and I would be very, very happy to be part of assisting the great things
so-
that you aim to do here. So yes.
Thank you very much for helping us, our group, and inspiring them to take up this mission more seriously, understanding that ISKCON as a body, what are the objectives of ISKCON as a body, and how many difficulties we are facing, and how we have to stay together to preach. So thank you
Yes.
once again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna ji.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you, everyone.
Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.